Hello, everyone. I think we are ready to begin. The dust has settled. The EU has imposed an oil embargo on Russia. This was surprising to everyone. So we are in a new historic era. I know we are here in a bubble, in the renewable energy bubble. But what is happening in the renewable energy bubble actually implicates the whole energy and climate security of Europe and the world. And Southeast Europe is always kind of this island no one cares about. But in renewable energy, it should be the leader of the European transformation to a decarbonized economy and society. Why? I had a meeting yesterday with the CEO of the TSO, the Bulgarian TSO, and he again reiterated how there are 20,000 megawatts of renewable energy investment projects being submitted for connection to the grid. And he reminded me that Bulgaria is not the only exception. Basically, all EU countries in Southeast Europe have submitted around 60 gigawatts of projects, and they want to connect to the grid. But how would that happen? This is one of the questions. But 60 gigawatts is roughly 1/5 of what the EU has proposed in its REPower EU plan to reduce natural gas consumption, to reduce the dependence on Russia. So your all responsibility now is not only to save your companies and give more dividends to your shareholders, but also to save Europe in a real energy and national security crisis. So today we have a great panel with business developers and suppliers who know the technical details that I don't know and I'm very interested in. So I'm very happy to be moderating this. But I'll ask questions that go beyond their maybe day-to-day routine, trying to make them think a bit more global and a bit more about what are the challenges for policymakers as well, for regulators, and how businesses can help these stakeholders overcome these challenges. Because in Southeast Europe, there is a lot of inertia, and business leaders are the ones that can accelerate processes and can bring down this inertia again, can kind of structure the process, can give ideas. And this is a great forum where ideas between businesses and policymakers meet. So today, I'm very happy to welcome representatives from all over Europe and all over the region. And I'll start with a lady on the panel. Merdzhanova, who is the head of sales of Northern Europe, UK and Ireland for Jinko Solar, one of the biggest suppliers of equipment for renewable energy in Europe and also the region, I imagine. So my question is, what is next on the renewable energy development agenda after Ukraine and after Russia? And I'm very much focusing and zooming in on the new security of supply risk, the new risk to reliability of renewable energy supply, which is the dependence on equipment and the dependence on raw materials from countries outside of Europe, from countries with political instability, with authoritarian regimes. And what can suppliers do to mitigate global supply chain risks and nearshore maybe manufacturing so that we have readily available technology to the renewable energy sector development. Thank you, Maria. The floor is yours. And please, to all the speakers, let's keep this to 5 minutes because we are very much running late.
Okay, thank you for the question. In general, for a supplier, the last 18 months was quite a challenging period for us. So we had COVID, and then we got the silicon supply shortage, cost tripled for silicon. Glass is another challenge which all the suppliers face for solar module supply in specific. And the logistics was the cherry on the cake, let's put it this way. At the moment, we as a company don't rely 100% on production in China. So we have 3 factories already outside of China, out of 12. did have a factory in Europe a few years back. Unfortunately, economically, we had to shut it down because it didn't make any economical sense to keep that factory running. And we know that there is a discussion about localization. There should be a lot of changes in Europe to first and most important is to help the suppliers start the production facilities, because this can go from tax deduction to some sort of support for the suppliers. Because if we look at the globe, what we have in Europe, we need to increase cell capacity like 45 times. Silicon needs to increase 6 times locally to be able to cover the need. Wafers 20 times more in Europe, which is going to be a big investment and a big challenge to bring it back to Europe. And then will this be economically viable for the investor, the IRR of the project? This is where a thin line, it will be a thin line between if the supplier should do it or not, and how Europe will help the suppliers to actually move facilities to Europe.
That's very succinct and very brief, and thank you for that. One follow-up question, very quick. What is the role of public funds, EU funds, for spurring research and innovation so that we can nearshore some of this production?
I have no clue about Europe funding for renovation, honestly. Okay. We have all our R&D is in China.
So don't you think that we need to move some of this to Europe?
Yes, of course, but then the supply chain is another thing which is a bottleneck.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Martin Iliev, as we call in Bulgarian, Maya Dash, who is representing the German Mittelstand, I would say a large to Mittelstand, large company, developer of wind projects all across the globe. And I would like to now switch to the kind of developer's position to that, to REPowerEU, to the development of the renewable energy sector in Southeast Europe. And I would like Martin to focus specifically on the potential for offshore wind in the Black Sea, because we have talked a lot about storage here, a lot about solar, but I don't know if we have talked enough about the potential for offshore wind. And it's a make or break issue, considering the very ambitious plans of REPowerEU to reduce gas consumption and fossil fuel consumption in general. So NWPD is very interested in this area, and I would like to hear more about that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. And it's a real pleasure to be representing the wind developers on this panel. And I think we have to hear a little bit more about wind in the next years. And as you mentioned, offshore is a big topic, and the previous participants, they mentioned already the North Sea, but there is a huge potential also on the Black Sea. And our company already submitted some applications on the Romanian side, but I'm sure in the future also some of the Bulgarian areas will be interesting, and probably it's possible that we look at cross-border cooperation. But I can't go in detail about this. Our office here in Bulgaria is mainly focused on the onshore development, and yeah, we're representing a pipeline of about almost 1 gigawatt of projects, and yeah, looking forward to our first realization. Regarding the REPowerEU and all the options and the... I can hear some noise, yeah. So yeah, with regards to the new legislation, and we are really looking forward to see some positive signs from the administration in terms of permitting, accelerating the process. But today we saw quite a few challenges on all aspects, technology, grid interconnection, yeah, so many challenges, and I would like to be a little bit more positive and how to say, to focus on really on the prospects and on the solution of all these challenges. I think all together we are working together with the government, with the different associations to solve different administrative issues related to the permitting process, also with ESO, and we are ready to also contribute to the development of the grid in the country. So as a big strategic investor, we hope to contribute to the real green transition in the next years and to put Bulgaria on the map again with more ambitious targets, not only for solar, but also for wind onshore, wind offshore, and which will bring actually more technology. This will bring hydrogen. I'm sure next time on the next probably event, we'll have more about hydrogen. So I think this will be part of the solution. Thank you.
That's very inspiring. I'm imagining this industrial hub in Varna where offshore wind will be powering the production of hydrogen, maybe for the industrial needs of the large petrochemicals and fertilizer plants.
Offshore hydrogen, Varna Chemical Valley, yeah, all these things are really industrial, new industrial zone, maybe new production lines also based in near Varna. So this is really something that is possible, and we have to work together to achieve it.
Thank you, Martin. You mentioned regulatory issue, you mentioned administrative bottlenecks. So now I switch to Bogdan Plutariu, who is the country manager for Romania of Enery. And I would like him to focus exactly on this. What can be done for improving the connection to the grid? How can we overcome the bottlenecks in this process? What are some of the nitty-gritty administrative details that have been actually blocking many of these thousands and thousands of megawatts of investment projects? And how can maybe Bulgaria and Romania, because I know that the grid operators are cooperating much more closely than with Greece, how can the two operators overcome some of these cross-border difficulties, I would say?
Thank you, Martin. First of all, I would like to say good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to represent Enery Element Romania. And I'm happy to see that so many people join us, and the awareness for renewable energy is increasing day by day. Yes, I think the first point and the most critical point is the grid capacity, because we all know, and it's not a secret anymore, that the investment funds are raising more and more money for renewable energy. But the question is, okay, we can develop, but where can we inject the capacity resulted from the development? So I think here the pressure is on the TSO. So if they don't invest and enforce the grid in order to absorb the capacities, we make promises and we assume capacities that will be achieved by 2030 without being realistic. One point. The second point is the regulation at the country level and also European level that needs to be improved in order to make it more feasible and speed up the process, permitting process. For example, now we need in Romania, and I can say that seeing the issues raised by the speakers that were talking regarding Bulgaria are more or less similar with the issues that we are facing in Romania. So permitting leads are quite big, between 6 months and sometimes maybe over 1 year. So also the governments need to improve and change the regulation and adapt with the needs, because according to the situation now and geopolitical situation, we are aware now that we need to speed up. But as Halil was telling earlier, I hope we won't make the same mistakes that we did it 10 years ago. And if we repeat them and we just see promises from the institution and nothing happens, we'll find out ourselves in the same situations after 10 years and we won't achieve any tasks. So regulation to be improved. And I hope this will be now pushed to the new legislative package that will come from Brussels. I was speaking 2 weeks ago on a conference with Valburga from Solar Power, and it seems that Brussels are working on that. of course, another situation that we are facing now, it's the lead times for equipments. And I think Maria explained a little bit the situation, but now we are facing lead times over 6 months for panels and over 1 year for transformers and inverters. So unfortunately, as we know, the biggest producer of silicon, it's China. So even we are opening facilities in Europe, still we need to import the main products from China. So to be honest, here needs for Europe to work and find solutions to improve those lead time, because it's very hard to budget them now, and you never know what's the price for after 1 year or even so. And another point, of course, to work close all the countries, the neighbors, Romania, Bulgaria, and so on, and the TSOs to work between them and improve the lines and be more, let's say, permissive for us to develop cross-site projects. I think this is mainly, well, of course, we can talk endless on these topics, but as I said, these are from my point of view, and I think my colleagues are, they agree with me, this needs to be improved in order to achieve our task that, as I said, we are targeting for 2030.
Thank you very much, Bogdan. I think this is, again, a very sober picture, and we have been hearing similar stories from other developers around the region. It seems that there has been a miscommunication between the authorities in Southeast Europe and business developers' needs. It seems like lack of trust is what is also missing. So, I mean, more communication, more interaction would be necessary, but also more transparency, because many of these decisions are taken behind closed doors. And in the work of our center, we focus a lot on good governance. So in the end of the day, we can solve all the business issues, but if we don't have good governance, we'll have mixed success, definitely, and preferential treatment for one interest versus the other.
I would like to add another point here. I missed this one, and I would like to see more financial schemes for the government and from the EU to support storage, because now we don't see that to concrete. So I think storage is most important now to balance the grid, because we all know, okay, renewable energy is good, but also creates unbalances in the system. So to unbalance that, and also to having storage, also we can encourage the PPAs, because then you can foresee and to know what you can negotiate. So this one as well, I think it's also an important topic.
The question is whether this should be a top-down approach of development storage or bottom-up, so based on the industrial consumer needs and specific areas, because the centralized approach might actually lead to a lot of public money waste, but we can discuss that. Actually, I would like to ask Paul Smith maybe to comment on that, and Paul Smith is the VP of Business Development of EMERGY. So building on what Bogdan was saying about long supply chain lines, problems with regulatory bottlenecks, but also the question of storage. So if we are to integrate all of these 60 gigawatts in the system, how can we do that without compromising the system? But on the other hand, how can we sell this electricity to Northern and Western Europe? So one of the ideas is how can we better connect Southeast Europe to Western Europe? And do you see the prospects of these two markets merging, especially in the area of renewable energy?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there. Thank you for those questions, Martin. Just to take them one by one, if I may. So the first point about the supply chains, I mean, if you look at the macro picture, it's a temporary issue. There are some global, longer-term issues on commodity prices, which are tending upwards, but that is not going to stop the renewables industry from developing. We've been through all kinds of surprises over the years in various markets, and the renewables industry is very fast moving, very dynamic, it's well funded, so there is no problem at all in us delivering what we say we can do. That's not a question at all. And I think we also have a vision of of a very regionally connected electrical system. We're a regional developer. We're not a global developer. We've focused specifically on Southeast Europe. So we're very, very much in favor of a very, very connected system. Whatever can be done to increase the level of connectedness, whatever the governments can do to support the TSOs to do their job as effectively as possible and in as interconnected way as possible is very, very positive. So we need broader connections for our electrons to move up and down the region, but I mean, we could certainly see an energy highway being something of great interest, because I'm actually based in Greece and we have tremendous solar resources. We have potentially really excellent offshore wind resources. There's a great potential for sending that up to Central Europe, and there's a great potential for bringing wind a lot of the time down into Southern Europe. So above and beyond the interconnectedness of our particular region, then let's see what we can do to start really building that highway and really moving electrons around in mass rather than just bits and pieces between countries. Former colleague of mine this morning, Nick Vicios, I don't know if he's still in the room, mentioned the need for allocations of longer term capacity on grid connections. That's a very, very good idea and definitely should be encouraged. So yeah, key messages, absolutely, that there are huge potential to not only interconnect the region, but also to interconnect ourselves with the rest of Europe and become a net energy exporter for the whole of Europe.
So it is possible to build 320 gigawatts?
Absolutely.
More renewable.
Yeah, we'll
By
each one of us can do a small part, and we're happy to do that, but I'm sure that the industry can deliver that, no problem.
Thank you. And can Turkey do it? That's a big question. Can your association of solar energy companies in Turkey help with the European goal? Because in the end of the day, we are one interconnected market. It could be the EU, but Turkey is part of the European electricity system. Turkey has relied on a number of occasions on Europe for the security of electricity supply during some difficult moments, blackouts, etc. So what is the role that Turkey can play in the future? Turkey is always dubbed as the energy hub, usually for gas, but why not for renewable energy, electricity? And can Turkey become a net exporter of renewable energy, electricity to the whole region? A role that Bulgaria is so proud of having.
Thank you,
Mr. Halil
everybody.
Demirdağ.
I'm very happy to be here. We, as a company, investing more than 27 years in Bulgaria and last 14 years in solar. So we are in Bulgaria, also in Greece and Romania. So we are, as company, holding, let's say, the listening the heartbeat of all the countries around. When we come to the subject of Turkey, actually it's not only Turkey. From Turkey to, let's say, Spain, the most east and west, if you accept it inside the electricity system, already we have a 2,000 megawatt of connection in ENSOE. So that could be increased for sure. And very strangely, you see that a lot of investment subsidized by EU for batteries, but not for connection. Let's say from Romania to Bulgaria, there's a 770 kilovolt line that could be extended very easily, but there is not that much of a will. Maybe this is a question that could be asked to European Union, why they are just concentrated on the storage systems. But at least there's a natural storage. Day starts 3 hours earlier in Istanbul, not Istanbul, but in the east part of Turkey, where we have a lot of solar potential, and it goes 3 hours earlier than any place in Europe. So there's a natural battery. We can, without making any battery, any storage, 3 hours of 2,000 megawatts, 6,000 megawatt hour, how much it would cost, maybe we could ask to the gentleman, which was in the previous section. So we have a natural 6,000 gigawatt only for the 2,000 megawatt that we have at this moment that could pass through this grid. And this is almost 50 times more than the energy needed in Bulgaria, of course, in 1 hour. Regarding where it should be Turkey, Turkey will be a hub and will be a continuous hub. We will be selling gas through the natural gas pipes, but this time green hydrogen. Possibly hydrogen will be the next game changer. It is already, but also not many comments still. But green hydrogen is a very big part of the European Union strategy, and there you have last week announced that 10 million tons of hydrogen will be imported to Europe from third countries, and 10,000 tons will be produced in Europe. Here, Greece and Spain and Italy, South Italy, are much luckier because with one module you produce double hydrogen than any other place in Europe. So the cost of ownership, cost of production is much cheaper. Also same for Turkey. And I believe that these natural gas lines will be a hub as well for hydrogen, not in maybe 30 years, but in 10 years, even earlier, depending on the strategy of the, let's say, the European Union, how they want to do. And the second one that I believe is what I see that European Union is also more focusing on local grids and local consumption of electricity than to give this hub possibility to other countries where they have advantages. Like Greece has an advantage compared to Germany, and South countries have more. €1 investment in the South gives almost 50% to 100% more energy in South. So this could, I think this is not by chance. But the electric cars, gentleman was saying before that 2.8 million cars, as I checked from Google, in Bulgaria we have, let's say, 1 million cars changed into electric cars. One electric car, 150 kilowatt minimum possibly today. We are talking about 150,000 megawatt of a battery. I think that we don't need that much of battery as long as we have those cars. Every 6 car, 5 car, or 5 car will be a micro generator with 1 megawatt capacity. If you are in a building of 20 apartments, you will have 50 kilowatt of electricity transformer there. So each car will change the game, and every car will be a micro generator and a micro storage system. And I believe that in one day, all the electric companies like we will pay to the car owners, please give the management system of your battery to me, and we will be taking electricity from them and selling them electricity, but whenever we want. You will tell us that, okay, tomorrow I will travel 100 kilometers, and the rest we will be using them, and we will be creating a totally different energy system by time, and I'm 100% sure about it. That's...
Thank you. Thank you, Halil. By the way, there was a previous argument a decade ago that we need to build 2 new nuclear power plants in Bulgaria. Why? In order to put lights on all of our highways, from the beginning to the end. I guess your vision is much more sustainable, it's much more realistic, because, I mean, it sounds futuristic. Just a decade ago it sounded futuristic, now it's possible. And thank you for moving the debate a little bit more beyond electricity only and the other sectors. And I have just one quick follow-up question. Where is the role of industry in that, in the sense that have we reached the maximum that the industry can do in terms of renewable energy development, or are we still waiting for a big push in Southeast Europe especially? Because you mentioned you talked a lot about green hydrogen. I think the first and most kind of the lowest hanging fruit for application of green hydrogen and renewable energy is in industry. So how do you see that picking up across the region? Maybe Turkey as a more energy intensive country.
Actually, as I told this morning, my way of thinking is very simple. You cannot unregulate something that you need it. Everyone needs electricity. Every family needs electricity. Every factory needs electricity. And you cannot just say that I'm living it as it is. No, it is your first duty as a government, as a politician, to supply people with electricity with an affordable cost of electricity. That's why the regulators should stop talking and start to say minimum and maximum price or a regulatory body. So if we are talking about industry, also on the other side as producers, here you see in our session we have a Chinese talking for solar because European Union developed the technology. Today Fraunhofer has maybe developed the best cell ever. There are many things to be done, but there is almost no factory that is producing the modules. Don't please take it personally. We're talking about not about module and cell producers because also my company produces modules and cells in coming future. But polysilicon is based on sand and coal and electricity, and the price go 5 times higher. Why? Because China told that I can make more profit without selling. China learned this, be careful. China learned that they can make profit without selling. This is very dangerous. They made much more money with selling less. There is no totally problem with the quantity of silicon in the world. Please open the reports years back and read them. There was no problem at all. To produce 260,000 megawatts of solar panels, which is much more than any silicon that you need in a car or whatever. So it's a matter of marketing, very good by China. And when the sources are scarce, you are doing it. And this is European Union, at least Germany, supported Wacker to keep a silicon producer in Europe. They gave $500 million. Now they will give billions again, maybe. And then again, the industry will not be resisting to China because China will, any moment the European Union European companies will start to produce again, will bring the prices down. As 2017 and 18, what was the difference? In 17 there was taxes, in 18 there was no taxes, and that's it. So European Union will be deciding by themselves about those things. Regarding the highways, we have smart lighting where you just put a sensor and it lights when the car passes. So you spend very little amount of electricity and you can take enough electricity from the sun. So with a solar charger on a grid, on a lighting pillar, you can have it. No need.
Yeah, good idea. You should.
And I'm sorry that I was
Bulgarian.
out because my wife ordered some things and, you know, not to have problems. Everybody goes to Turkey for shopping and I have to shop some things from here. So I was thinking that they just turn it on and off from there. But
Actually, Paul Smith wanted to intervene on
that. Yeah, if I may, because I hope we don't leave, as a panel, I hope we don't leave the impression that we think there are good guys and bad guys in the global renewables system at the moment. I mean, our company, EMERGY, has collaborated extensively with Chinese companies very successfully. And I personally have collaborated very successfully with Jinko, and they've always supplied really excellent products on time, and we've had a great collaboration. And I really, you know, take my hat off to them because they've developed an incredibly advanced supply chain and production capacity in the country. I've been there to Shanghai, and it's incredibly impressive. So they have actually contributed incredibly much to building up the system that we have today and the capacity to actually implement these projects. So if we can do more in Europe, that's great. If there are price signals that allow us to build polysilicon in Europe because it's too expensive in China, that's great as well. Let's do it. If somebody wants to do it, I'm very happy to buy from there as well. So yeah, we're all in this together. We've got a global issue to deal with as a planet, and let's get on with it and stop pointing fingers and, you know, really, you know, get to work. And I think that's the spirit that I would like to transmit, at least.
Yes, let's get to work on a level playing field, though. That's the important thing. Let's not be too dependent so that we don't get into crisis like we right now. In talking about crisis, I'm turning the floor to the last but not least speaker, Dimitar Bartov, who is the managing director of Synergon, power trader in Bulgaria, because we can talk all about this fanciful future, 100% renewables, decentralization, electrification, it's all great. But we are living here and now, and as Keynes said, we all dead in the future. in the long term. So what are we going to do in the short term? How can we get this electricity crisis under control, and what is the role that traders can play in facilitating the penetration of renewable energy electricity to the market so that we can bring prices down? By the way, just one note, one study by the CSD showed that renewable energy integration in the system by 2030 would reduce the increase of wholesale electricity prices from 55% as expected to only 13% in Southeast Europe. So I mean, this is a great potential to kind of solve the crisis of renewable energy as the big solution to the energy crisis. So what is your take on that, Mr. Bartov?
My take is that renewable energy in the current political crisis in which the world is, and particularly in Europe, it makes the markets more volatile, which is not in the favor of all renewable energy investors, because as Mr. Demirdağ said, an investor needs a stable and foreseeable market, so he can invest, and the bank backing him can invest, and the renewable energy revolution to continue growing. And as traders, we facilitate the risk avertiveness of the investors and on the other part, the risk avertiveness of the consumers. So we are actually a financial TSO between investors in renewable energy and consumers. But the most important thing, as far as I heard today, is to have at least the same investment in the grid as in renewable energy, because everybody here is invested in some kind of project, and they want to see this project happen in the next 3-5 years, which is kind of the foreseeable future. And on the other part, the grid operators are speaking about projects that will come to fruition in the next 10, 15, 20 years, etc. So I think it's very important for everybody to move with the same speed, because as Mr. Nikov said in the morning, the Minister of Energy, the most important thing is to move with one speed, because the stability and the market depends on everybody collaborating. So, frankly speaking, we as traders, we can't do anything to stabilize the markets, because as you see, just from a certain news, markets tend to rise 20-30%, which is extremely unstable for everybody, and nobody can make any adequate estimation where the markets will be in the next year or in the year after that, and this is not okay for everybody. So governments should stop making markets volatile and start thinking about stability, so that everybody can do their job and fulfill the plans that are set.
Do you see the space for a reform of the wholesale market in Bulgaria or in the region or Europe? What kind of products are missing on the market to lower prices? Do we depend too much on the day-ahead market price? Were we too optimistic about the day-ahead market?
It all depends on the risk strategies of the participants. So, for example, now prices are very volatile, and since the beginning of last year, they're systematically growing, meaning that consumers are not willing to buy energy for a year ahead on such high prices, because they always believe that the prices will go down. And it's the other way around. When the market starts dropping, then the other party decides that they don't want to sell on a long-term basis, because markets will come back up at some point. So in order to be a liquid and adequate market, we need stability. And currently we don't have it. And nobody knows when it's going to come back. Hopefully the war will end soon and we'll have some kind of a frame to work with. Because the example with Turkey was really, really interesting, because they have a bottom price and like a maximum price, which is very good for the whole market. And here we don't have it, and we should think about it really hard.
Interesting. Tough times. Thank you so much to the whole panel.
Мартин, извинявай, само искам да напомня, че Андрей Манея също е онлайн.
Oh, he's online. Okay,
Yes.
sorry. Sorry, I didn't know that. I should have been warned about that. So, last but not least, of course, Andrei Manea, who is someone that I got to know much better in Romania a couple of weeks ago. He's the board member of the Romanian Wind Energy Association, and he works also in Enel. And Andrea, are you around?
Yes.
Andrei?
Yes, I'm here. Are you hearing me, Martin?
Perfect, clear.
Great.
The floor is yours. And I want to ask you actually
Martin?
a broader kind of, a broader question again. So where are we heading? So, I mean, this will be the question for all of the speakers here, but maybe you can summarize the
Yes.
discussion. So, is it possible to achieve the very ambitious objectives that renewable energy developers have in Southeast Europe? What is lacking? What is the role that Romania plays in that process? And what are the main bottlenecks? Also, can we overcome the energy crisis? Because I think Mr. Bartov previously mentioned that we don't have enough state stability, so basically state intervention to ensure stability. So what can we do to ensure stability on the market?
Okay, thank you, Martin, for the invitation and also to organizers. I think was a very good conference you had today. What I want to say, first of all, if we are making a step back and thinking 1 year ago, maybe on the same period of time, if we try to have this kind of conference in Romania or in Bulgaria, I think was pretty difficult to gather so many people at the same time, on the same table, not due to the COVID, because at that point, the interest for renewables was not so high, let's be honest. Now, I think it's clearly the bubble is boiling, and it's not something related to Bulgaria, Romania, but it's related to whole Europe, at least. So it's a good upside from my point of view in 1 year period of time. And I want to underline also some good points. For Romania, at least, we have PPAs in place. So it's a subject which is somehow is touched by the Romanian authorities. We're going to have CFDs starting from next year. At least this is the official declaration of the Ministry of Energy, and we are working on this. Our TSO just released the new 10 years network development plans, which is in public debate now, and it's stated that they are seeing for around 50,000 megawatts in renewables until 2040, which is quite ambitious for Romania. And this is a new capacity to be installed. So practically, just to compare, 2 years ago, they put 0. So it's a huge, huge change of mindset in all the stakeholders. It's not us only, the investors or the associations or the producers of components in the industry, but also the authorities. Okay, we know which is the main trigger, we all discussed until now, but we have to see also the good side. Now about the speed, about the bottlenecks, yes, you talked a lot, there's a lot of things to be improved in Romania for sure, I'm sure also in Bulgaria and other countries, but nevertheless, let's not forget that 1 year, 1 year and a half for a PV to be developed in Romania is not bad compared to other geographies in Europe. And we know very well what is the timing in France, in Germany, and so on. So in order to reply a little bit to your question, yes, we have a lot of advantages as a region, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, also Turkey. Yes, we have also the European funds. For Romania and Bulgaria, we have the modernization funds, a lot of money which could come and will come for renewables and also for grid investments. So it's clear that now we should work a little bit more outside the box, because we are used that in the past to develop very clearly a project, to buy the lands, to see what are the resources, what is the connection, and so on. Okay, this is clear. Now we have to change a little bit this way of working. We have to speed up the things because we don't have time. This is the reality. We are pressured by time. And the repower, which you already discussed about this, it's putting this instrument on our table. Yes, you could do it faster. It's not going to happen tomorrow because it's a process of implementation and so on. We know very well what is the speed of this kind of decision and directives from European Commission. But in the same time, it's the clear direction that the countries have to follow. A faster permitting process. Now it's our turn in each countries of presence to help the authorities with clear advices where we think the process could be improved, because it's not only that you have to change it. Okay, if they changes how they are thinking that is good, in the end could not be the best case scenario, let's say. So we have to participate actively in this process of adjusting the national legislation. Second, about the bottlenecks in the transmission grids, which for our region it's clearly a problem. Money are on the table, especially for cross-border projects. You are discussing and your panelists are discussing about Black Sea. Yes, it's important, but we all know that wind offshore, it's a different type of investment. It needs scale. So from my personal point of view, it's not only Romania or Bulgaria or Turkey. We need to act together because it's a new industry which should develop it should develop at the magnitude bigger than the onshore one, in order to deploy also in the Black Sea, because we are not competing between Romania and Bulgaria or Turkey. We are competing between Black Sea, North Sea, or other geography. So we have to think also on this. What I can say more, it's in the next period, we as the Association of Romanian Wind Energy Association, we are more than open to discuss with our counterparts in Bulgaria, but also in Greece and Turkey, to see how we can really push what is coming from Brussels to have it in place, because there will come a lot of nice targets to be implemented. You discussed, it's very nice. Okay, we have a lot of questions marks related to the implementation of these targets. So we have to act together in a consolidated way to do it, because it's not about Romania, Bulgaria, or Greece. We are cross-border, and we are, due to the energy flows, we have to work in a very close relation. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you so much, Andrei, and thank you for the optimistic vision about regional cooperation. We haven't seen that too much before, but I think countries get together in times of crisis, and there was a memorandum of understanding signed 3 weeks ago, I think, between the Bulgarian and the Romanian energy ministers on applying for cross-border projects in renewable energy. So this is a good step forward. Market coupling in the region is being done as we speak, is being completed. So things are moving forward, and and you mentioned something that I also touched upon, and Martin as well. Black Sea offshore wind is something that we should all together work on. Also Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, but I would say also Ukraine. At some point, Ukraine should be also involved in this process, so that we, as you said, competing not only with among ourselves, but with all European developers and investors. So Thank you so much, Andrei, for this positive outlook. And thank you to all the speakers for their great interventions. Now we have 5 minutes for questions from the audience, and then maybe a final sentence from each one of you. Please. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, my name is Bruce Douglas from Euroelectric. First a comment and then a question. So on the comment, yeah, I completely agree with the statements about investment in grid infrastructure. So we estimate 400 billion euros is required in Europe by 2030 to meet those renewable targets. That's grid investment. Yeah? It sounds a lot, but when you compare that to road transport infrastructure or oil and gas infrastructure, it's actually not too much, but it is essential. Another comment about the future of the fully integrated electricity system. As I said when I was on the panel, I'm passionate, if not obsessed about it. And if you want to see the future, look at Norway, where they have that, or they're approaching it, with their electric vehicles and their heat pumps. So demand side response on that side as well. And I'd be happy for you to control my EV, yeah? But you have to pay me for it. Yeah? And that's the missing piece, is how do you fully and correctly and credibly monetize the consumer at the end. And a question then on the skill gap. And I agree with everything that's been said about the challenges, but what we face in Western Europe is a skills gap. You cannot get an installer for 12 months, 18 months, maybe even 2 years in some regions. Do you face the same thing here in this region? And if so, what are the solutions, if any, that you're working on or that you've seen? Thanks.
Thank you. Who would like to respond to the skills question?
I can have a go. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, so I'm from the UK. I've lived here more than half of my life. And we had a very successful, one of my previous jobs, we had a very successful EPC business. What we found was that the people in this part of the world are well-skilled. There's a technical orientation, there always has been in the education system. So engineering and has not been a dirty word. We've generally found, certainly in terms of engineers, I think the quality of, and certainly the cost performance ratio of engineers in this part of the world is probably the best in Europe. There's a lot of Northern Europe where people are getting paid by our region standards, very high salaries, and not necessarily being as productive. So I think that's one of the hidden secrets of this part of the world, is the technical skills base, which is also being exported extensively. In the UK, for example, you know, Romanian installers are fairly, fairly standard. So yeah, there's obviously going to be a bit of a crunch. But I think, as I said earlier, you know, I do believe in our capacity to deliver this stuff. So if you make the market, and that includes the employment market, liquid enough, then I think we'll be able to do it. There should not be too many constraints. I'm thinking again about the UK, which has put these artificial constraints around movement of people. We have to factor that into our thinking. I think as far as the EU is concerned, I don't think we'll fundamentally face a skills gap if you look at the big picture. It'll be a bit like the pricing issues on the equipment and materials.
Thank you, Paul. Any other questions? If not, then I'll ask each one of you for one final sentence, and it should be also about forward-looking developments. So what is the state of renewable energy in Southeast Europe in 2025 and in 2030? Can we have at least 50% electricity generation from renewables in all the region by then? So what can be done to achieve this target? If yes, and if not, why? Bogdan?
I will say yes, it's achievable. Definitely there is a lot of potential for renewable energy development in the southeast of Europe. Mainly, I think you can still acquire big surfaces of land for, let's say, a decent price. And also the manpower power and so on are quite accessible. And as my former speaker was saying, you can still find good technicians and engineers and so on. But as I said earlier, it's also a pressure and a matter of the TSO and the regulators to support and improve the environment to make this possible. So I would say a lot of closer collaboration between the private sector and the government, and for them to really do what they are promising.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, I'm also positive. I know quite a few projects under development, good projects, so I really believe we can achieve the targets. It won't be easy, but I would also agree that collaboration is the word for me. And all together we can put more effort and go to realization in the next years. So I would like to finish on a positive note and really optimistic for the next years.
Thank you. Maria?
I've seen a lot of projects under development as well in Eastern Europe, Northern Europe, UK, Ireland. Ireland is coming up as well, so the market is growing. As long as the governments make things a bit easier, I'm pretty sure we will reach the targets. And maybe we should look at one thing nobody mentioned. We should educate our children that green energy is not something bad, because they think it's expensive and it starts from a young age. And unfortunately in Eastern Europe, it was the last 10 years, electricity is expensive because of green energy. And now things have changed and we need to educate our children that this is the future. So it's off the record, but it's where things start.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is the crux of the issue. There's so many decarbonization myths all across Southeast Europe, and we need to debunk these myths by showing success and by showing that really renewable energy doesn't need subsidies, or it doesn't cost taxpayers anything, and it actually reduces prices, doesn't increase them, because people really, as Maria mentioned, think the opposite. Paul, your take on that maybe?
Yeah, that was very well said, Martin. I think renewables can provide certainly a new degree of welcome stability in terms of price expectations on the consumers of electricity. So, definitely we're going to be looking for corporate off-takers. We'd be happy to provide them, as Dimitar said earlier this morning, 20-year PPA. You can have a fixed price, by all means. So, yeah, the industry's there. There was a comment earlier about stability. We need stability. I don't know if we're ever going to see stability. I think we just have to basically live with what we have. Of course, we'll work to have greater, certainly, political stability. I don't necessarily think that would translate into market stability. But that should not be a problem. I think we, as an industry, are very capable of being able to ride through that and continue delivering and build up something which is really worthwhile and will get us to zero carbon sometime in 2030 on the electricity system.
You think so?
If people put their heads together, then why not? Yeah.
Why not? This is a good message. Blaise Pascal said in 16th century, 17th century, that if we all put our heads together for 2 hours and concentrate, we can change the world. So maybe we should do that. Halil, what do you think? Can we concentrate on one common vision?
If we go back to 2010 and 2011 and 12, everybody will remember Bulgaria and Romania, 2012, even Greece. The project prices were incredibly high, and I was asking some developers, do you know that your alternative after 1 year is to cultivate something? Because he was dreaming that he will sell his electricity for 25 euro cents. and he was asking for 250,000 euro for a project. So these are the things that the regulators and the governments should do. Someone from the public, people, is spending money to develop a project with a dream, and you should tell him more about the reality. And this reality should be told by associations, by the politicians, and so that there is enough profit for a developer, an EPC company, an investor, and a financer. As long as this is regulated and not made these mistakes that all of us did in all the countries in 2000, whatever, because also we had the same in Turkey. In Romania, I'm an investor. 6 certificates, 4, 0, boom. And you lost, many people go bankrupt. I don't know if that time you were in Romania, but I mean, this is what we have to change, I think, after, putting heads together, also to remember what we had in the past. And I would like to add something. We are now very lucky because that time the electricity price in Bulgaria was 8 euro cents, and we're supposed to sell electricity for 25 euro cents. Now at least the electricity is much higher, and we are trying to offer very, very low feed-in tariff prices, and they say, no, we don't want your electricity. And we are much more lucky today.
Thank you, Halil. Dimitar?
I believe that the private sector, since the last couple of years, showed that when push comes to shove, they can do it, because I really believe that thousands of companies in Bulgaria and Romania are already investing heavily into renewable source energy production. So from here on, now it depends on the state and the regulators to make life easier for them and to give them the opportunity to work, because everybody wants to.
So no state intervention. So no subsidies, no EU funds, no recovery and resilience funds.
I think as long as the state invests in the grid, and because electric vehicles are also going to be really a heavy burden on the grid, heavy burden with the renewable energy producers as well. As long as the grid is stable and it's invested in and at a fast pace, because waiting will just slow everybody. And I don't believe there's going to be a problem to reach the future we're talking about right now.
No time to waste. What about you, Andrei? Are you with us?
Yes, Martin, yes. What I can say, having in mind that in 2020, for 2020 targets, Romania, but also Bulgaria and Greece achieved the targets, I think, well beyond 2020 horizon. And at that point, we are only followers. We didn't have any wind turbines in our country, for example. Now we have more than 10 years experience in development, in operation and maintenance, in construction of the wind turbines and PV projects. So it's quite different, the situation. What we should do now more is to extract more value for this kind of investments, to stay here in our countries, to have a local value chain of production, regional, if possible, for components used in the renewable industry. I think it's very good for our region. And second, to invest more in the development of our people, starting from technicians to engineers and so on, to have a strong industry surrounding these very nice targets for 2040 and moreover for 2050. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Andrei.
Martin, I would like to add another thing, if it's possible, please.
Yes, absolutely.
So, to bottom line what we discuss here and what we all gather, if you look to this kind of investments for renewable energy, it brings only positive things, if you ask me. So a lot of money, we're talking about billions for each country which are invested. Taxes, a lot of taxes cashed by the government, by municipalities, from development, from exploiting the substation and then the plants and so on. New jobs which are created, and there are jobs for long terms because all these plants are foreseen to function at least 30 to 45 years. Of course, a transition to a cleaner environment. So I don't see why we should not embrace and support renewable energy. I really don't see it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bogdan. I think you're absolutely right, and Our governments need to understand that, you know, putting all of your eggs in one basket, namely fossil fuels, and in Southeast Europe, coal, doesn't give you as much jobs as renewable energy. So we may lose 43,000 jobs in Bulgaria, but we'll gain hundreds and thousands of jobs in the future with renewable energy. And this is something that every government is missing because it doesn't win votes. But we can convince them that more votes can be won via renewable energy development. So thank you so much for these optimistic visions. Thank you all for having us and for listening to us.